abruptly, didn't it?
Good morning, Dennis.
So, hey, Dennis. So the video was chugging a little bit. I don't know if that's the foreboding of things to come.
We're
But
chugging a little bit too.
yeah, so I should know better. So I made my coffee a little bit early,
Oh,
but it was in the hard time, so it wasn't early enough for me to finish and make another cup. That it was early enough that I've got about 3 drinks left, and I'm done. Um, Good morning, Bethany. Dennis says hey,
hey,
because
hey,
you said hey, Dennis.
hey.
Hey, Jim. That's funny. That reminds me of Andy Griffith when they say,
Yeah.
"Hey, tell so and so I said hey."
Hey, Goober. Hey.
Yeah. Oh man. It was trying to snow earlier. It's not right now. Of course, there was a 30% chance.
Oh, wow.
Then they took it out of the forecast, and then it tries to snow. So who knows? I don't think we're gonna get
It
much
was
today.
cold enough too.
Man, I had like 20. Yeah, it's only 27 now. I had like 20 degrees this morning. Um, so I think I told you this um, when we set up our what you call it, the weather station. Maybe I didn't. The weather station at home.
Oh.
I got one that I can check. When we're away, I can look and see what the inside temperature of the house is and the outside temperature of the house. From an app. And when you set stuff up like that, you don't think, to ask you all these questions and you're going through. Well, Hope and I were in there one day and we hear it beeping and we're like, what? What's that noise? Because you could tell it's some kind of alarm. And so go in there and I had set it so that if it gets above a certain temperature outside, it'll beep. And if it gets below a certain temperature outside, it'll beep. It sets off a little alarm. I'm getting a phone call this morning. This is funny. Hang on a sec. Hey, we're live on Facebook. What's up? Yes, sir. You're all good. All right. Bye. No. Everybody's gone, and the vicious dogs are put away.
Squirrel.
You bet. See ya. Bye. So our house is one of the houses in the village. They have certain houses that they use to test the water,
Okay.
the quality that they send in to the state and stuff.
Right.
Our house is one of those. And he had asked me yesterday if he could come today, and he's pretty good about calling. He's earlier than normal. Usually he does it around 10. But he just was checking to make sure it was still okay. Tony, no.
What's up, Tony?
Tony's sad because it's not snowing today. Tony wanted it to be snowy and windy, and because he always, I don't think Tony ever has any inside work. I think his work is always outside.
Oh, man.
But it was a different Tony that was calling, so. Um, so we have a dog. This sounds weird. He's part golden retriever and part dachshund, but it really does work for him. it looks good on him. He looks like a golden. He's all golden retriever except that he's shorter and anyhow. He's the only one I don't know that if we didn't put him up, if he would, like actually go after somebody or not. Because he was a street dog.
Oh,
He's a rescue. Anyways, wow, we're all over the place this morning. So disconnect. Sometimes there's a disconnect between what we say and what we believe.
For me,
what we do and what we believe. I'm sorry.
There's always a disconnect. But you take all the mystery out of how to accomplish it. Doesn't make it easier, but it makes it a lot simpler. That when we do mess up, we just say, "Hey, I messed up. That's not the line I want to walk, and I apologize."
For me, if we do that, you like jumped ahead, which is great because Paul's not going to be here Friday.
Oh, okay.
So then, no, that's okay. So we'll unpack that on Friday better. How do we live that out? How do we do that? But when we do that, then it's not a disconnect, in my opinion, anyways. If someone calls you a hypocrite if you pretend to be one thing, and you're not.
Yeah.
But if you're not pretending, if you're just saying, "Hey, this is what it looks like to follow Jesus," we don't do it perfectly, and I've got all kinds of gadgets. I'm a gadget guy. If you ever come to my house, just so you know, I have the Ring doorbell, and when you come up, no matter what you do, you don't even have to push the button. It'll record a little video clip of you. Made the mistake of telling one of Hope's friends that, and so from then on, every time she came to our house, I have an eyeball right there, right at the Ring doorbell. So anyhow, squirrel. I get distracted. I get distracted so easy.
There's an alarm on my weather station.
There is an alarm on my weather station. I've got cameras around the house. What else? My Ring doorbell. I love the Ring doorbell. If you guys, I mean, if you wanted to get like one thing, that one's awesome because. So here's the good thing. You know, if wow, this sounds really stalker-ish. I should probably not say this, but like, if I'm gone somewhere and I worry, did Cynthia make it home okay? I can tell because I see when she comes in. You know what I mean?
Oh, okay.
And if she's grumbling about me when she comes in the door, I can hear that too.
So on your phone, you can go back and see what happened.
Oh yeah, I'll show you. Hold on, just a second.
Just a quick disconnect.
Yeah, hold on. Let's Risa arranged my stuff, and she calls all that Spy House. So what am I saying? Ring. Bear with us. Don't. Oh, they all bailed already. Look, there's only. They're like, they're not going to talk about anything good today. So I do that, and I can go live. I can see it right now, or I can see. Look right here.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Coming in, and if he was grumbling, I could hear it. Like you can hear. You hear the dogs barking? No. All right. Anyhow, but that's not what we're talking about today. What we're talking about today is that disconnect. So, how we should live. Yeah. Let me just read it for you. How we live should match what we believe. If we do that, then there's not a disconnect. But what Jesus was talking about, and just so you know, we're getting into when Jesus turned the corner. Now he's like preparing his disciples for his death, burial, and resurrection and ascension. It gets a little bit weird, and I shouldn't say like Jesus is weird in what he says. It's hard to the things that he says are a little bit hard to understand, and so the one that we had for a Sunday, it talks about the dishonest manager and unrighteous wealth, and at one point Jesus is telling a parable, and this is the reading in the English Standard Version translation. The master commended the dishonest manager for his shrewdness. That sounds like that he's commending someone for being dishonest. And then later it says, I tell you, make friends for yourselves by means of unrighteous wealth. That sounds like Jesus is saying, hey, go and steal some money to make friends for yourself. But that's not what he's talking about.
Yeah.
We're going to look in a...
I got, I don't know if I can find it now. I like John Gill.
Uh-huh.
And I looked up what he had to say about that, and it's really interesting. Go ahead, I'll see.
Was it totally different than what I said?
No.
Oh, good.
It was right.
So
I just liked his words.
So the dishonest manager, he was dishonest initially, and then that's kind of his moniker now. That's his handle. He wasn't dishonest. Jesus wasn't commending him for his dishonesty. That's just the way he was referring to him, so that we knew that he was talking about the same guy. Again, the dishonest manager.
Here it is.
Okay, tell us. Oh, yeah.
This is what John Gill says about that. He says that when the master was talking to him, what he was saying is that they are wiser for the time that is to come in this life than good men are concerning themselves for the time to come in the other world. And that goes along with what you say. We're not preparing just for this one. Or they are wiser and more prudent in disposing of their worldly substances for their own secular good than that of their offspring, than men of spiritual light and knowledge are in disposing of their worldly substance for the glory of God. I thought, yeah.
So, but sometimes when we read stuff in the Bible like that, we have to be careful just like the time Abraham lied about his wife Sarah, saying that it wasn't his wife, it was his sister, and it was some technicality. And then the Pharaoh took her as a wife, and God punished the Pharaoh. God, sometimes the Bible just like says what happens. It's not saying it's okay to lie. There are instances where it's okay to lie or anything like that. So here, he was just referring to him. He wasn't commending him for his dishonesty. He wasn't dishonest in the part where he was commending him. He was commending him for being shrewd, saying, "Hey, I need to handle things," and he was handling
took care of business.
And then the unrighteous wealth doesn't mean that it was stolen. It means worldly is a better way to translate that, worldly wealth. Yeah. And so anyhow, that helps us a little bit. But I say that to say that we're going to hit something like that again this week. And there, times I look, I'm like, oh man, I'm committed not to skip any passage just because it's difficult, which is hard sometimes. You think in the Gospels it wouldn't be. In the Old Testament, you hit a lot of those, but so I'll do a little bit of I have some splaining to do on Sunday about this next passage. Now that y'all are going to go and read it, but anyhow, so the dishonest manager wasn't commended for his dishonesty. That's how he acted initially. That was just a way to refer to him. He was commended for the way when he saw he was in trouble, that he was shrewd. He was
took care of it.
I don't know if wise is a good way to put it. Didn't use that word, but he was shrewd. Yeah, he made some business decisions that benefited him.
What can I do to fix this problem?
Right, and he did it.
Yeah.
And then unrighteous wealth isn't ill-gotten gain. It just means worldly is a good way to look at that.
I like what John Gill said is, in that instance, he was better at taking care of the worldly stuff than we are about spiritual stuff. I've got an issue. Oh, gee, I'll put that off until next Wednesday.
Well, spiritual things we tend to do that with because they don't seem immediate. I mean, that's one of the reasons I think that we are one of the most unhealthy nations in the world. Not the most, maybe, but is because eating healthy, you don't see immediate benefits. It's not like I can go to the gym today and that's all I got to do, or eat healthy today and it's all good. It's a long-term cumulative effect that we have, and spiritual seems to be the same way. You and I have said this before. Paul and I have said it also, that the small incremental investments over a long period of time yield the best results. It's that way spiritually, but man, that's hard to do. When you just keep putting it in. Oh, Jose made it. He was late. He must be retired or something. I don't know. They're retired people. And so that I think makes it hard for us. But that's exactly what Jesus is saying. And he says it a little bit more clear in Luke 16, verses 10 and 11. He says, one who is faithful in a very little is also faithful in much. And one who is dishonest in a very little is also dishonest in much. If then you have not been faithful in the unrighteous wealth or worldly things, worldly wealth, who will entrust to you the true riches? So here's the way that I phrase that for us to kind of, how do we make application of that? That people look at how we live to decide if they should believe what we say.
Right.
So
our secular lives should match our spiritual.
Yeah, but people look at that, they're like, if they don't handle the things of the world well, why should I trust them to handle spiritual things well?
Yeah. If you can't handle the temporal, I'm going to trust you with the eternal.
Yeah. And so we need to be really careful. And I think last night in the Bible study that kind of came out too, that the way we live either validates or invalidates the things we say. And so that's what Jesus is getting at here in this whole parable is people are going to look at the way we live, and by that they will decide whether they should believe what we say. And if we're not, but this only makes things a lot harder. So now you not only have to handle spiritual things well, but you have to handle the worldly things well. You know what I mean? And that's why he was commending the dishonest, not for his dishonesty, but the the manager, he was commending him, and he was saying exactly what you said. And John Gill, who by the way is an old dead guy, but a commentary. I like his commentary. He's really practical in a lot of things, but Jesus is saying, if we would handle spiritual things as well as some people handle even worldly things, we'd be better off. If we would handle it with that kind of foresight and looking ahead for the future. And that's what that guy was doing. That guy was like, "Hey, I'm going to lose my job." I like what he says. I'm going to read it for you just because it's fun.
How much do you owe?
Oh no!
Sit down
Before that,
Oh.
he said, "What shall I do since my master is taking the management away from me? I'm not strong enough to dig." That would, that's like for most of us, this stage in life, I'm not sure I can start a new career. Especially if it's going to be hard physical labor. You know, I would be like, I don't know what kind of physical labor job I could handle. At 55. And then he said that, and I'm ashamed to beg. But by the way, you guys realize in the Old Testament, those were like your options. You either worked or you begged.
Yeah, that's Plan B.
I mean, you didn't, and so that's why that's the scriptural admonition for the church to take care of the widows. If and women were third or fourth class citizens in those days. That's why the Bible elevates them really high above that. But if a woman's husband died and she wasn't young enough to remarry, all she could do is beg. I mean, women in business were not a thing. I mean, you see a couple, Lydia, I think was one, but you didn't see that. So that's just funny to me. I'm too old. I'm not strong enough to dig. I guess I've read myself into that. I'm too old to dig and
But digging's a whole different story up here. It's the Rocky Mountains for a reason.
True story. When I first came here, they had put a fence around the backyard of the parsonage, but they didn't get the gate on. It needed another fence post for the gate.
Right.
And they said, because that was like 2 weeks. They were like, in 2 weeks, all right, we're gonna get this place ready for the pastor. And so, and they did great. They just didn't finish that. And so one of them, and they had talked with me about this. I said, I can do stuff. I can turn a screw, and stuff. And so
that ought to be a T-shirt. I can do stuff.
I can do stuff. I'm a pastor. I can do stuff. So they handed me a pair of post hole diggers, and I said, "Well, I know how to use those." And it was John Tanis. He says, "That's just to get the rocks out of the hole."
Yeah, here's a rock bar.
He handed me a rock bar. He goes, "That's how you dig the hole." So digging a post hole up here is a whole different story. I found an easy way to do it, though. What you do is you dig till you get down to rock, and then you stop.
Walk away.
Yeah. Wait about 3 months, get the loose rock out. Wait 3 more months, get the loose rock out. Eventually, if you keep getting the loose rock out, especially in the winter, I came right before winter. Then
freeze and thaw. Thaw.
Takes about a year, but that's an easy way to dig a post hole up here. But I love that, and that's something that's important for us to remember. Let me get back to the big idea is how we live should match what we believe. And the reason is people look at how we live to decide whether or not to believe what we say.
And for me, that's a built-in disconnect. What I believe is so far above how I can live. And we talked earlier, but saying, I know that there's a disconnect.
Mm-hmm.
I know that there's a disconnect. Answers the problem, but it doesn't make it simple. Pride is a big fence to step over.
That is hard. It's hard to confess every time you mess up.
Oh man, all day, every day.
so another true story. All of my stories are true. I don't have to make stuff up. I haven't done this in a while, but on Sunday morning, I always get here early on Sunday mornings. If I'm not the first one here, I feel just discombobulated. I just like having it's quiet, and I have my coffee, and I do my notes for the YouVersion app. That's how I review. That's how I get ready for Sunday morning. And so I'm by myself in here on Sunday mornings, And I can't tell you how many times I've fallen up the stairs. And you know, you like, I don't know what it is. I'm misgauging. I'm not as young as I used to be. I don't know, but you know, I just catch one of those and fall up. And even though it's 6 o'clock in the morning, there's nobody here. The first thing I always do is look around. Anybody see that? You know, don't we do that? So when we mess up like that, we look around and anybody see. That's kind of the way we are in life when we mess up. If nobody saw it, then we don't want to. Okay, I don't have to confess it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't have to. I don't have to own up to it. I just did in front of you guys because y'all are my close friends here.
Reminds me, my dad used to tell me when I'd mess up as a kid, he used to tell me, okay, messing up is okay. Falling down is okay, but get up ahead of where you fell.
Oh,
Yeah. Okay.
so falling up the stairs.
Yeah, that's what made me think.
There's a. I think John Maxwell may have written this book. It's called Failing Forward.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So the same idea.
Yeah.
At least when you mess up, you're ahead of the game. You don't get behind.
Okay. Cognitive leap. I think that when we confess what we've done, and you talked about this with your daughter, that if we are honest about our mess ups, that does put us ahead of where we messed up.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
If we admit it and
if we
confess,
acknowledge it. Yeah.
yeah, and ask for forgiveness. I hope so.
Yeah, me too. It was my only option.
Yeah. I'm. Yeah. Paul talks about this in Romans chapter 7. If y'all haven't read that lately, if you ever get discouraged, like you're thinking, man, I'm not getting anywhere, you know, in life, it's like 2 steps forward and 1 step back. That's still a step forward, but read Romans chapter 7. Paul says he had the same struggle we have. Paul basically says the things I want to do aren't the things that I do. I end up doing the same things that I don't want to do. Yeah. And so
I like the way he ends it though. Thank goodness that there's somebody out there to forgive me for it.
Yes. And right before that, he says, who can free me from this body of death? In other words, this flesh. Someday we will be free from all that. But that it would encourage us if we just do that's progress. Yeah. I want to get to the place where I'm not going to God and saying, Lord, I did it again. You know what I mean? Now, yeah. I don't think on this side of heaven we're going to be the place where we're not going to mess up or sin at all. But at least it's a different one. Yeah. It's not the same one, you know. So, but Paul does say that, you know, each of us has like an area that we're more vulnerable in. Besetting sin is one of the translations of it, but something where we just really struggle with, and that's that way with everybody. But if we confess that when we sin, especially if you're there and I sin, then I need to ask you for forgiveness, as well as God. Right. But if we do that, then that's a step in the right direction, and maybe that connects that back. Maybe it's a disconnect if we don't, you know, if we don't admit it and confess and repent. Maybe that's a way to keep reconnect. There from being a disconnect. Yeah, that we connect that back, because it's like, yeah, I'm not pretending like I don't sin. I just want to sin less. Yeah. Well, not sinless, but sin less.
Right. I feel like at first, early 70s, when I became a Christian, it was like this, just wham, I'd hit the bottom and climb it. And I want that to slowly, you know, the sine wave to.
Yeah, and to be smaller dips and an upward
yeah. trend.
Yeah, trend. That's the word I was looking for. I was thinking curve, but that's not. Anyhow, well, let me pray for you guys. Gosh, this is Wednesday already. Quick. Next week is Thanksgiving. Just a reminder. So no Java and Jesus next week.
No youth.
No youth. No nothing.
Okay.
There's not a single activity happening in a church next week from Monday through the next Saturday. So no men's Bible study, no women's Bible study, no. I need to let the guys know circles that I meet with them on Tuesday mornings. No nothing. No nothing.
Turkeys are saying, get busy.
Yeah, I plan to be tripping on tryptophan. That's what I want to do. That's the thing in turkey that makes you sleepy. Yeah. I didn't want to like start any rumors, you know. Pastor Larry's got a drug problem. Yeah. Tryptophan. That's good stuff. And we're going somewhere. So I won't even be around.
Take a break.
Yeah. I'm gonna take a book to read. Just why not? But let me pray for you, and I'll be back on Friday. I guess just me, myself, and I, the three of us. Paul's still traveling, little turkey. Speaking of, and so yeah, he'll be back. I think they're coming back. Anyways, I'm not going to give away his personal stuff. He will be back, but not in time for Friday morning. So Friday morning we'll talk about how to unpack that. So you guys think about that, about practical ways to live that out, because I'm going to be asking him.
Oh, cool.
I can't ask Paul.
I'll get on the other side.
I can
try and
ask Paul,
answer.
but
You can.
you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
He's gone. Let me pray for you, send you off into your week. Thanks for hanging in here with us. Listen to us gab with one another and pick on each other. Father, would you help us to live in a way that brings you honor and glory, a way that, God, gives validation to the things that we say. Help us, Lord, to be honest in our walk with you, not just with you, but with those around, and not as an excuse to mess up, but God, just to let them know that that's part of what it looks like to walk with Jesus. That we're not perfect. We know we're not perfect. We're not pretending to be, but that as we grow, as we walk in our relationship with you, that God, you work in us, that you change us, you make us more like Jesus, and that's the journey. And at the end of the journey, even though it's hard for us to imagine, we'll be with you and we'll have no sin, and that we will be the perfect reflection of your Son, Jesus. God, we long for that day. I pray that you would work in our hearts to make us more like Jesus day to day. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Thanks for hopping in, guys. Even though you're late, that's okay.
We love you, man.
You retired people, you... someday I'll get there. I'm not retired. I'm just tired. So, love you guys. We'll see you. I see you on Friday. You'll hop on with me. You'll help me from the other end.
Sure.
All right. Think about it.
I will.
All right. Help me remember the question I'm going to ask. I
Okay.
always forget that. All right. See you guys.